Good morning. Welcome to a brand new episode of Breakfast Central. We're excited to have you join us. We're going to be looking at some of the big stories that have happened over the weekend, some of the stories that are developing stories, and in a shocking twist, maybe not so shocking, Joe Biden has announced his decision to step down from the presidential race in the United States of America. We'll be looking at that story, as well as others. I am Olive Emodi.
And I am Osaogi Ogbon. Yes, welcome to Breakfast Central Monday morning's edition. We hope that for the next 2 hours, you, of course, get as much information as possible as we can share with you. Remember to also join us in the second half of Breakfast Central and have your thoughts on these conversations either via our phone lines, which will be on your screens, or via our social media platforms at News Central TV. Be a part of the conversation. We would absolutely love to hear from you. And yes, President Joe Biden has decided or declared that he would not be running for re-election. That was breaking news sometime late yesterday evening, and of course has gotten the whole world talking, not just here in Nigeria, of course, or in the United States, with different perspectives, many people having their own views, I'm sure a lot of people didn't find it necessarily surprising. Absolutely. It was expected that it would happen. I feel like the debate was the final nail in the coffin for Joe Biden. I'm not sure why exactly they chose to do the debate, even knowing that he wasn't physically fit, mentally fit, maybe even emotionally fit for a debate. But he maybe was even set up, in my opinion, by whoever is running things in the Democratic Congress, or Democratic Party.
I've seen different sides of the argument. Whilst there are some who say that it was a no-brainer, that it was eventually bound to happen that Joe Biden will step down because, like you've mentioned, they haven't found him physically, emotionally fit. There are others who argue that he was bullied out of the race. He was bullied in real time and bullied in a way that had to make him step down to sort of prioritize what the people seemingly want, and that it is for love of country that he steps aside, putting aside his own personal ambition to lead the country and just caving into the demands of the people. So I've seen different sides of the argument, but I think certainly it's not so much of a surprise that he has agreed to step down. Another interesting thing would be that during a number of Donald Trump's campaigns and a number of the press releases that we'll see, he would always make attacks and make fun and jest of Joe Biden's mental state. And I wonder, mental state, emotional and physical capability to lead the United States. I wonder what will be his ammunition against Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris hasn't been picked yet. But, rumors from the statements that have been made even when she was being rumored to be the choice, a lot of people don't like her. They don't like her as a choice. There's people who say that she was only picked as a diversity or inclusive hire to be vice president. It wasn't necessarily because she fit the competence that was required for that level. And if you've looked at what has happened in the last 4 years, you can maybe also see that she really hasn't contributed much to the United States or contributed much to the Democratic Party. She's just existed as vice president, if we're being honest. I'm sure that is one of the reasons that they also found it difficult to pick her, or for Joe Biden to choose her, or rather to let go and then put her, as his nominee. She hasn't been picked officially by the Democratic Party, so for now it's just still his choice.
But what are the other options if she isn't picked?
There are not very many other options. Exactly. Michelle Obama was mentioned, which of course is very likely not going to happen. Yeah. Hillary Clinton was also mentioned. She's lost before. They very likely won't pick her. California's governor Gavin Newsom is also mentioned. He might be the one that he will eventually pick. Maybe Pete Buttigieg, but of course Pete Buttigieg, who's their transportation minister, that's what it's called, is also mentioned. But I'm sure that is also an option simply because, once again, diversity. He's gay. I don't know if that's the way to put it. But anyway, that's maybe the only reason that he might also be picked. The Democratic Party currently doesn't have a lot of options.
And one thing that the Democrats lacked was the support of a lot of younger voters who genuinely could see through Joe Biden's state of the health, his mental, physical health. So there are some people who have the opinion that having someone like maybe a Kamala her strong point would be being able to rally a lot of women and a lot of younger people who had lost faith in the presidential candidate of the party.
That's also not very likely to happen. So two things. Let me just also quickly respond to some of the things you mentioned earlier about being an honorable person. If he was honorable, he should have resigned long ago. He should have let go of the whole decision of running even before the debate. So the whole idea of him, throwing in the towel now and then saying, oh, it was the best thing to do, such an honorable person for the love of country, all those things don't work. It will only work for anybody who's easily deceived. He should have done it long ago. Another thing that I'm happy that this exposes is how deceitful the United States and foreign media are. These people they basically were telling the whole world that what your eyes were seeing was false. Joe Biden has been stumbling and acting like he was 100 years old for the last 1 year at least. Many people have been even saying that Joe Biden's brain doesn't work. That's a funny way to put it, but these things have been obvious for so long. But they continue to lie and lie and lie and lie and lie, and every single day tell you that what your eyes are seeing is a lie.
In plain devil's advocates, we found that whilst our own president was running for office, he got a lot of similar criticism.
Very true.
Talking about the quality of his mind, and all those arguments have now been laid to rest.
Very true.
The Tinubu that we saw during his campaign is not necessarily the same person in terms of his cohesion and the ability to be able to communicate ideas. Those stumblings, we don't see that again.
Yeah, but you barely even see him. It's not like you see him every week now. So you can't even argue that you don't see that, a lot. When's the last time you actually saw him address the country, without a teleprompter, without being pre-recorded? Anyway. So, but my point is, I'm happy that this exposes how these people really are liars. The majority of what we call corporate media and, of course, the foreign media, they continue to just sell propaganda as much as they can until it is no longer possible to sell it. And that's how, if you can notice, before the debate and after debate, there was a complete flip in their narratives, by the next morning after the debate. I'm happy about it, because I keep saying that this was lies, but nobody believes me.
All
anyway.
Right.
We begin breakfast headlines with U.S. politics, where United States President Joe Biden has announced that he will end his candidacy for re-election, saying it is in the best interest of his party and the country. It comes 4 months before Americans go to the polls, upending the race for the White House. Now, following the announcement on Sunday evening, President Biden gave his endorsement to the presidential race to Vice President Kamala Harris. And now in West Africa, President Bola Tinubu on Sunday reeled out the achievements of the Economic Community of West African States to African leaders. He spoke in Accra, the Ghanaian capital, on Sunday while presenting the achievements of ECOWAS in the past year at the 6th mid-year coordination meeting of the African Union. Detailing the efforts of the humanitarian and social development front, President Tinubu said ECOWAS had allocated $9 million to assist persons of concern, including refugees, internally displaced persons, and asylum seekers. And also in the news, Nigeria's Labour Party has refuted claims by the presidency that its presidential candidate Peter Obi and his supporters are behind the planned nationwide anti-government protest scheduled for August 1st. The presidency described the calls for the protest under the hashtags Tinubu Must Go and Revolution 2024 as treasonable. The special advisor to the president on information and strategy, Bayo Onanuga, however, proposed a Save Nigeria rally from August 1st to 15, 2024, in response to the planned nationwide protest from August 1st to 10th against the rising cost of living and economic hardship. And away from that, the Federal High Court in Abuja has mandated the Independent National Electoral Commission to hold state governors, their deputies, and others accountable for cases of electoral violence, bribery, vote buying, and conspiracy during the 2023 general elections. The court's decision, announced in a statement by Kolawole Oluwadare, Deputy Director of the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, orders INEC to appoint independent counsel to investigate these offenses. This includes probing electoral violence and other offenses involving state governors and their deputies during the elections. The reinstated Deputy Governor of Edo State, Philip Shaibu, has tasked the Nigerian police force to fish out the killers of a police personnel who lost his life during an attack on his convoy by suspected hoodlums and thugs. Shaibu, while urging youths of Edo State to refrain from taking to the streets, made this known in Benin City, the Edo State capital, after a Thanksgiving service, saying it remains in the interest of youth in the state to shun violence, as a breakdown of law and order is the plan of those who want to foment trouble in the state. And now moving to East Africa, Kenyan opposition leader Raila Odinga on Sunday made justice a prerequisite before any talks with the government, a month on from deadly demonstrations, referring to the weeks of the demonstrations against planned tax rises. Odinga said justice must come first before any talks. Odinga, who lost out to Ruto in the 2022 presidential election, said there had to be a national conversation between different sectors of society. And that's all on Breakfast Headlines. We, of course, move back to Breakfast Central, where we continue with these conversations and bring you our top stories. Stay with us. Welcome again to Breakfast Central. Now, some Nigerians have tasked the nation's lawmakers to come out clean on how their donated salaries will be applied to tackle the current hardships facing Nigerian citizens. This followed the announcement by members of parliament from the House of Representatives who say they are donating half of their salaries for the next 6 months to help tackle the current food crisis affecting citizens. Idong Joseph reports.
For us to make sacrifices with our salary.
The announcement of the deduction of about 300,000 naira each from the salaries of about 360 lawmakers from the House of Representatives for the next 6 months had followed an appeal for organizers of a planned nationwide protest, which is scheduled to start from August the 1st, to shelve their plans. The protest is expected to get government's attention on the increased hardship being faced by citizens in the last 1 year.
The people of Nigeria, your crying is right. Your complaint of hardship is right. But is the solution found in carrying placard and lining the streets?
You have right to protest, our young men. But the nation first. We should be patriotic, we should be nationalists.
Acknowledging the concerns of the proponents of the proposed protest, lawmakers appealed for calm, urging aggrieved citizens to allow government's policies to manifest and tackle current hardship. They expressed confidence that the policies will get the nation's economy back on track.
We are appealing to our young men to give the government the benefit of the doubt.
I'm moving that we amend that prayer to include that members sacrifice maybe 50% of our salary.
With the gesture by the lawmakers being applauded by many citizens, they however raised concerns on how the monies donated will be delivered to those who need the support.
Are they going to be deducted at source, or each person would actually release this upon payment to the central account that will be dedicated for this purpose, and then that same transmitted to appropriate government office?
Some members of parliament, including several citizens, are also urging those in the executive arm of government to follow suit.
Just now, we cut our salaries. Mr. Speaker, I want to appeal to executive to do so. From Mr. President to Vice President to ministers to chief executive officers.
We must all come together to build a more formidable Nigeria and to ask the government of the day to look into issues that have been driving so many agitations in this country.
As a country, if we want to succeed, there is the
Several sides of the divide regarding what lawmakers must do with their salaries and allowances. Nigerians are asking if it has to be a 50% deduction, it has to be a 50% deduction in salary and allowances for it to actually amount to something as opposed to just salaries.
Yeah.
I saw him say passionately, we feel your pulse, Nigerians. What is the way out, carrying placards to go and protest?
Yeah. And I think a lot of them said pretty much the same thing, to try to discourage Nigerians from protesting, which is, it's their right to say. I don't expect that they would say otherwise. But the thing is, one of the lawmakers there, said he's pleading with Nigerians to be patient and give the government benefit of doubt, which again, is expected that he would say. But the thing here is, and it's one thing that I've always been saying, is that the people can always feel the pulse of the nation without necessarily having to be cajoled into it. You don't have to convince anybody to believe in you. There are things that the government would do and things that there's a way government will carry itself that people would just, naturally believe, okay, that we seem to be moving in the right direction. And so if the government has failed to do those things and failed to act in ways that convince Nigerians that they're not waiting in vain, then that's why you're seeing people then deciding that maybe we should actually protest. And you can't blame the people, and then try to emotionally blackmail them, gaslight them into not protesting because they're hungry. And again, nobody needs to be, like if something is blue, if you look at it, you can tell that it is blue. If the Nigerian citizens are seeing actual progress, yes, there's suffering, there's hunger, there's high cost of living and all of that, but if they're also seeing that your body language and the things that you're investing in, the steps that you're taking are going to lead to a much better Nigeria in the next couple of years,
right,
Nigerians will be patient. I'm sure that they will be. They've been patient for so long, so it's not going to be anything new.
It's looking a little like I don't know if I would say medicine after death. I don't know that that's fitting, but more like a last-minute approach that is lacking in sincerity, mainly because you're trying to dissuade Nigerians from protesting.
Yeah. Anyway, let's all now talk about, other trending issues across the country. Aliko Dangote, who's, of course, one of the continent's richest men, is speaking up amidst recent controversies with the NNPC Limited. It says, of course, that he has had recent challenges. And the question is Nigeria happening to the richest man in Africa? The CEO of the Dangote Group, Aliko Dangote, is addressing recent allegations, including claims of monopolizing the Nigerian oil production market and poor oil quality. The Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA, accused Dangote refineries of attempting to dominate the market. They criticized the company's oil products for allegedly failing to meet industry standards. In a surprising move, Dangote announced that the company would no longer invest in Nigeria's steel industry, citing concerns about market monopoly allegations. Let's take a look.
Right. Whilst before we bring that video to you, let's also let you know that the Chief Executive Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA, Farouk Ahmed, said the diesel the refinery produces is inferior to the one imported into the country, and that diesel from the Dangote refinery contains a high sulfur content of between 650,000 ppm, making it substandard, 650,000 to over 1,000 parts per million. Joining us this morning to look at this conversation is economist Gbolahan Olojede. They will be joined much later by a climate science professor at Rivers State University as well. Good morning, Mr. Olojede. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, good morning. Nice to be on the program.
All right. Before we get into the conversation, let's listen to what Mr. Aliko Dangote has to say about this.
Our quality was about 600 to 650 ppm, and the 600 to 650 ppm is one of the best in terms of quality, okay, at that time when we started. But as of today, we are 87 ppm, and I assure you, media, you can come again and take sample on Monday. By Monday, latest Tuesday, will be at 50 ppm. By beginning of August, will be at 10 ppm. So in terms of quality, we are doing very, very well. Nobody can produce anything better than us.
Well, you heard him. In contrary to the allegations about his product being substandard, he has said that by today, Monday, they'll be able to guarantee 50 ppm, and then by the 1st of August, it will be up to 10 ppm. Mr. Gbolahan Olojede, it would seem that the travails of Aliko Dangote have been quite a lot in the past few weeks. He's been speaking more to media, to journalists, and sharing a lot of the hurdles that he has been through. It is beginning to look somewhat political. The CEO of NMDPRA has also faced backlash from Nigerians who says that he is demarketing the product as opposed to being some form of a protection or a covering to Aliko Dangote, who is stepping in to, make fill in the gap where the NNPC may have failed. So would you say now this is something that there is some element of truth in, or has it somewhat become political?
I think it's largely political, and it's also hugely shameful that this is where we have found ourselves. When you look at some of those statements, I think they should have been resolved at a different level, not coming into the media. Come and say some of those. For example, last year, more than a year ago, actually, the refinery was commissioned by the former president. So if 14 months after, it is still 45%. So what percentage was it 14 months ago when the former president commissioned? Is it an unlicensed refineries? Because in recent times, in the last few months, we've seen the federal government itself partnering, having discussion with Dangote for diesel prices. And we've heard all sorts of statements, even from government quarter, about the Dangote refineries. Does it mean that all those things were not real? Were they just fabricated? If a refinery has been putting diesel in the market, and then you hear a comment like, oh, the diesel is not good, we prefer the imported one. So what is the essence of this project then, if the imported one has a higher quality? What the agency should do is to work with Dangote to achieve the level of quality that it desires, not to have a preference for the imported one. But it seems as if there's a love for the imported ones. And that is the kind of statement that we're hearing. I just hope that the number one person on whose desk this all stops will look at this matter, will intervene, we get into that space and have this resolved. We are talking of a $20 billion project, right? Nigeria has been a country that has been exporting commodities, crude, for years. We've been importing this refined product. We are at a point where we can flip this, and we are beginning to speak from both sides of our mouth. It is disgrace. When you talk of monopoly, the same government has been saying that the 4 refineries of the government will start to work. If these refineries are working, we are told that Port Harcourt has been completed mechanically since the beginning of this year, or since the first quarter of this year. So if the 2 refineries in Port Harcourt are producing, they told us Warri will start producing. Kaduna has been awarded for revamp. So how is it a monopoly then? If 425,000 barrels of
hold on, Mr. Olojide.
Right.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask a follow-up question to what you've said. You did say that you're hoping that the person on whose table this should be resolved, steps in quickly. Who, by this person, who do you mean? Do you mean the president, or are you talking about the Minister of State for, Petroleum Resources, Heineken Lokobiri? Who do you mean when you say that the person whose table this should land on should resolve this?
It's the president.
Great. Just wanted to quickly clarify that.
A project of this size, although it was essentially said to be private, how much money, in one way or the other, how much commitment, how much effort has Nigeria as a country put into that project?
All right.
Why should we now go to the last stage, and instead of working closely, of course, there's a regulator. Do your work as a regulator. Don't let bad quality get into the market. But please and please support that project rather than having a preference for imported quality.
Yeah. All right.
We've been importing since 1972. Please.
All right, Mr. Olojide. We also have joining us this morning climate science professor at the River State University, Precious Ede. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you join us. Let's also get your thoughts, on whether, this is politics being played out, or the head of the NMDPRA does have genuine concerns about the quality of diesel and sulfur in the diesel produced by the Dangote refineries. I know that they did carry out a quick survey over the weekend, and it showed that the Dangote diesel might actually be the best quality that that is being delivered across the country. But what are your thoughts?
Yes, before I was invited to speak, Dangote was featured on their news saying that by today, the level of sulfur in his diesel will have come down to about 50 parts per million, and that by August it will be down to 10 parts per million, and that as far as he's concerned, he produces the best diesel in West Africa. There's nothing, it may be true. The thing is this: why will regulators stand aside and allow regulators, being present, or even regulators carrying out their own sample? Does it then mean that a certain or this thing that after a week ago that it was true? It is a question nobody has answered, and we need to know that. And we also need to know that the products we are expecting from Dangote refinery will have consistent.
All right. Professor, it seems your network isn't the best at this point. While we try to reconnect, let's go back to Bulahon Olojide. Mr. Olojide, let's bring you back in, and I now want to ask, about, certain decisions that Dangote himself, made in setting up, the refinery, and the conversation about a monopoly. I think the idea behind, or the claims, that he's, benefiting from a monopoly is not just because of the refinery. It might also be because of previous businesses and the idea that he has always been, government special child, and has always benefited from government support for many, many years, through his cement business, his sugar business, and any other, businesses he's invested in. And so, does anybody have a point, there, if they say that he has genuinely benefited from a monopoly in the last long while, not just because of the refinery?
But maybe we should be talking of some sort of oligopoly and not a monopoly. In the cement space, is Dangote the only manufacturer in Nigeria? There is Lafarge, there is Bua, and you need to check out the capacity of these manufacturers. There are other smaller ones, but I just mentioned those two big other ones, Bua and Lafarge. They are there. In fact, Lafarge was in this market before that. So when Lafarge was the only guy that was there, how come the accusation about monopoly was not the other? If you come to sugar, there are 5 businesses that I'm aware of. Bua is in sugar, Flour Mill is in sugar, I think a couple of others are also in sugar. So how is it a monopoly? So in the real sense, the regulators should do their work. Where there are issues around monopoly, it is not to say, oh, investors, stop investing because we know you are a monopoly. No, you go and let the regulators rise up and do their work as far as ensuring that people are not being fleeced by virtue of monopolies. But like I've given examples, even in the specific ones you mentioned, are they monopolies? If there are 2, 3, 4 other big players in those same space.
All right. The CEO of NMDPR, I don't know if Mr. Precious Ede is here with us.
Professor, I'm here with you.
Okay, Professor, thank you very much for joining us. We did have some challenges regarding your network. We're hoping that we can have you react to the first question as to whether or not there's some sense to the argument of the CEO of NMDPRA or if it is politicized. Also, in addition to that, part of the statements or the responses that Dangote had for the NMDPRA was that they should show their laboratory where they have done this testing. For example, he showed his own testing laboratory where this product was gotten hot, fresh from fresh from refining or fresh from the source, and it was being tested right there. So he has asked that they show their laboratory. So talk to us about the validity of the claims of the NMDPRA. Is that also a defense? Dangote has talked about laboratories. Do we know of their testing facilities, that is the regulatory agency in this case?
I think the regulatory agencies have a standard laboratory. I'm aware of it because I have used it in the past. Maybe not in the recent past, but they do have. And even if they don't, there are independent laboratories across Nigeria that can test for sulfur in petrol. That's not a very advanced science. But concerning the controversy, I think the Nigerians, the average Nigerian like you and I, are the ones bearing the brunt of this intrigue and controversy that is going on between Dangote and the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority. There should be a truce. Like the previous speaker said, the petroleum minister and president of Nigeria should step in and call everybody to order. What Nigeria needs is to be able to, drive into a filling station, buy gasoline or diesel, and drive away. Later we can talk about the price. As at now, that is not happening. And this controversy is an unnecessary distraction. It's an unnecessary distraction because, like it has also been pointed out, how about those refineries controlled by government? Have they been able to deliver? They've not been able to deliver. We were all banking on Port Harcourt refinery producing since first quarter of this year, and they've not been able to start anything. And the latest news we are getting is that they will start by August. So Nigerians should be given an opportunity to live normally, ordinarily, like citizens of other places in the world.
Yeah. All right. Bola Olojide, let's bring you back again. Initially, all the controversy started with, seeming complaints by Dangote and his group of not being able to get adequate crude oil supply from the NNPC and, initial arrangements that they had. So tell us, about that aspect as well. And, maybe that's also one of the reasons why people say that might be politics being played here. The NNPC not with its 20% stake initial agreement and other things. Why is Dangote struggling to get crude?
It is struggling to get crude simply because government has not made the crude available under what might have been an agreement. The so-called, the 20% stake, I think part of it were probably supposed to be paid up in crude, but the crude is not available. Don't forget that we've not even been able to make our target, neither the OPEC target, not to talk of our budget target for crude production. So if we don't produce at that level, we are supposed to produce. And the little we produce, we have pledged it in certain swaps and other deals. The question is, where would the crude be? That is number one. Number two is to also, which is why it is important that the president himself step in that middle. See, the politics of all of this is there. The deals, who want to be cut in, who wants to be out of the deal, who should be brought in, are also there. What is important for Nigeria is that let the fuel be available. All the promises that this refinery held, let it be delivered to the people. Well, all those other things, Mr. President can step in there and they can resolve it behind it. But let's be able to let that refinery work. Let's be able to earn foreign exchange by exporting refined products. Let's be able to stop all that importation and consuming our hard-earned foreign exchange in importing white products. If we solve that, if we let that be at the forefront of this decision-making process, it will be better for us as a country. The rest of the stories are politics and deals matter.
Yeah. I want to, now you're talking about crude. There's meant to be, isn't it regular practice that there's meant to be an offtake agreement signed many years even before the completion of the refinery for every person who's going to be getting into this business? And does this mean that Dangote didn't have an offtake agreement? He didn't have any agreement, based on who was going to be supplying him crude when the refinery was completed? And that's one of the reasons he's getting into this mess.
It will have been a disaster if he didn't get a contract like that in place. It's also possible that it was probably relying on some gentleman agreement. Gentleman agreement can fail. Whatever the case is, we are now at this juncture. I mean, let me also add a third part, which is there are people who said, look, the $2.7 billion, Nigeria paid only $1 billion, and the rest were meant to be in supply of food. If that is part of it, I've never seen the papers, and that's the deal. So I can't be categorical about what was in that agreement that they had for the share purchase. But if that was part of the deal, then apparently he had a basis to have relied on $1.7 billion worth of that will be coming to him. However, let's even say for whatever, it will be a very big blunder. And the crude agreement was not signed. We can still work this out. We're a crude nation. We are, oh my God.
All right, Mr. Agbola Olojede and Professor Precious, thank you so much for joining us. There are other angles to look at. We hope we can have you both join us much later, maybe looking at his refusal to invest in steel going forward because he doesn't want to be accused of monopoly. I'm sure that when we have Prof again, he would have some climate perspectives to give us regarding that conversation. But thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
All right. Now, moving on to the United States of America. President Joe Biden has beat the 2024 presidential race goodbye. In a surprising move, he announced he's stepping away from the 2024 presidential race. He shared the news on social media, giving his endorsement to Vice President Kamala Harris. Now, the update is that the decision comes after a tough debate performance on the 27th of June, where Biden struggled to find his footing. His Democratic supporters had been urging him to pass the torch, and it seems he's heeding their call. Biden will now focus on finishing out his term in office, which ends on the 20th of January 2025. We'll go on a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Global Affairs analyst joining us to look at the most recent announcement of the stepping down of Joe Biden and the impact it would have on the U.S. elections is Global Affairs analyst Ejike Okpa. Good morning, and thank you for joining us. Good morning, Nigerian time. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's almost 2 a.m. Dallas time.
Oh, so I think it's safe to say good morning as well, and thank you very much for staying up for us. Let's talk about Joe Biden's withdrawal. First of all, was this something that was foreseen at this moment? Yes, there were a number of people calling for his withdrawal because there were questions as to the competency of his body, his mind, and his intellect regarding the U.S. elections. But did you see this happening? And did you see this happening now?
Well, I wouldn't say I saw it coming, but I knew it was going to happen because, in the debate, Joe Biden displayed Joe Biden that, people knew from a long time ago that it's going to happen. And so it was just like a late pregnancy. You can't hide it anymore. And then he finally decided to, give it up because there was pressure from his own political people who said, he has to give it up, and he gave it up. Whether, whomever is going to take his position is going to win in November, 3 months in an election is an eternity. But, I think the American people are feeling that they've been deceived. They were masking and covering for Joe Biden. Even when we see what we have seen, they want us to unsee it. And that is just an embarrassment. How can you lie to the whole world, especially to the American voters? I mean, if somebody's sick, somebody's sick. It has nothing to do with the age. I think sometimes, politicians have to step forward and be honest, with their own people and say, hey, look, I am not feeling it. I am not in a position, health-wise to do it. I'm going to have to give it up. Instead of just signing up to power, embarrassing yourself, embarrassing those who support you, and at the end you chicken out. This is a chickening out exercise. It's not because Joe Biden, because a few days ago, even the wife, the whole family, and Joe himself said, I'm going to stay in, I'm not going anywhere. And then finally, he's giving it up. So how does that make him look? We don't know, but I'm a Republican, and I know my candidate, I know who I'm going to vote for. But we're waiting to see who, because even though Joe has endorsed Kamala Harris, there are people in the party, especially Obama, who doesn't want Kamala Harris to do it. And then the Clinton side are supported.
Yeah, I mean,
Kamala Harris.
The views of, I mean, you just mentioned that they are not being honest, or they haven't been very honest about Joe Biden's health for a long time. And I'm going to say that it's not just the party, it's also the U.S. media. A lot of them also carried on with the same narratives that they know are false, all the while that people could see very visibly that Joe Biden wasn't in his best bill of health. I want your thoughts on those who say that you can't simply withdraw from running for re-election. You might as well withdraw from you might as well resign as president, because if you're not fiscally fit enough to run for re-election, it means that you're not necessarily fit to stay in office. How would you respond to that?
Well, those are good comments and good observations, but he doesn't have to resign as president, because if he resigns as president, automatically, the vice takes over. But he can hang in there. He doesn't have to do anything, show up for the few hours he may show up in a day. It's just that the rigors of running a campaign is more challenging than being president. He just goes to office and sits there. If he sleeps, nobody cares. And he has how many months to go? So he can toughen that out, except something more critical health-wise happens, and then he has to go. Or there's an amendment in our constitution that the cabinet can get together and say he has to go because he's no longer capable to carry out the duties of the office. But until that happens, Joe is still the president. We're just talking about the campaign, who is going to be running as a nominee. And remember, it's only when they get to the convention, if all the delegates, what is their name? The Democrats are what they call the super delegates. The super delegates are usually the ones who decide who the nominee is. So they can do this, and Kamala has all the delegates, and then the super delegates can trump that, sort of like veto it and put whomever they want. So it's an intriguing part in American political process, especially for a presidential campaign. Well, we are watching, and we're going to learn from this. Maybe next time somebody else will be more careful to be able to be honest with the American people ahead of time and say, I can do this, as opposed to this late hour, sort of like changing a horse in the middle of a stream.
All right.
I mean, it's the first time that we would see a presidential aspirant pulling out this late in decades. But let's talk about Kamala Harris' chances. We're seeing that blue chip, by virtue of blue chip, we're seeing that donors have raised about $46.7 million to support her campaign. There are people who are throwing their weight behind her, but like you said, there are people who are not throwing their weight behind her. Former President Barack Obama has given his speech about the withdrawal of Biden. Whilst applauding Biden, there was no mention of his endorsement of Kamala, even though Joe Biden did endorse Kamala. So what would you say are her chances, to officially, to get endorsement from the party? We're seeing celebrities endorsing her. And if she does get the endorsement, what are your expectations? Maybe at the debates.
Good question. Again, the chances of anybody running for office is just as good as anybody who's going to win or anybody who's going to lose. So in terms of Kamala Harris, of course, there are going to be those who are going to rally and raise money for her. The thing is, if you look at her performance as a vice president, most people didn't have confidence in her. I mean, she doesn't know how to carry herself. But again, the tide is changed. It's a new day. He might now start getting coaches and people, handlers who say, do it this way, do it that way. But the point is, that's what we call in America, do you have the fire in your belly? It is a different thing when people tell you, you go run, we support you, as opposed to when you yourself is the one that say, I'm going to run and I know what it will require of me to do. So Kamala Harris is not a very confident individual. When she speaks, you can see her, she mumbles things, she jumbles things, and then she crackles and laughs as if this is a child's play. Maybe all of that is going to change. But we are looking forward to her being the nominee, so we can see her perform on a debate stage. Again, I'm hoping out, holding out hope that my candidate or Trump is going to be the one winning. But, I don't think Kamala Harris has the chances. She bungled, the issue about the border. She doesn't know how to represent a lot of the issues that she's been given the responsibility as vice president to do. Yep. Remember, the vice president in America doesn't have any constitutional duty except for those assigned to that position by the president. The only thing is You know, she's the head of the Senate. If there's a deadlock, she can go break the tie. Or, you know, if the president is incapacitated and then somebody, they step in. Those are the two things. Other than that,
all right,
they serve.
Yeah, if not Kamala, you know, who else do you think the Democratic Party has as options? Is it, you know, Hillary Clinton? Is it Michelle Obama, who, of course, has said that she's not very interested? Is it Gavin Newsom, Pete Buttigieg? Who else? And also, who do you think is in charge, really, of the Democratic Party? Because it's obviously not Joe Biden for the last long while. So who do you think is pulling the strings in the Democratic Party?
You know, I like your question, and you know, the Democratic Party is a party of elites. So now you have two factions. You have the Obama side of things, and then you have the Clintons. So far, people think Obama has the upper hand, but you see how the Clintons have stepped in to say we are supporting Clinton, Kamala, to say, hey, we now taking charge. And then Obama is going to now turn around and say, well, I don't like Kamala. I'm not going to support her. So that is what's going on. You see, the Republican Party don't have. If you watch the Republican candidates, the ex-presidents don't get involved in what the nomination process is going to be. You didn't see George Bush, in Milwaukee cheering for Trump or all of that. The Republicans, once they do their job, they step aside. It's the Democrats, it wants to stay in and begin to play the role of this godfather, godmother, that kind of stuff. And that is what is going to destroy the party. And this Joe Biden withdrawing now, and then Kamala Harris become the heir apparent when other people in the party don't support her, is going to throw in that confusion, whether it's the Obama faction or the Clinton faction. And we want to see that, because a house divided is a house that doesn't have a strong foundation, and they are going to collapse.
All right. I also want to talk about Donald Trump. I saw his statement on Truth Social yesterday, where he's, of course, still calling Joe Biden crooked Joe Biden. He's not been very graceful at a time like this. It is his election to lose as it stands. Do you think he can make it all the way in the next 4 months?
Well, of course, we gotta come up. Trump is gonna come up with a name for Kamala. That's he has that character of him, and we don't know what that is gonna be. Biden is gone, and for me, I think nobody should talk about him anymore. Let him go home. If he decides to be in his basement, fine. If he decides to be in the White House, fine. Leave him alone. The man has health issues, and at this point in our life, we should recognize those things and step away from dragging them into it. Again, the campaign is on, and we'll see. We don't know until next month when the Democrats do their convention and see who's going to be the flag bearer. So far, what I tell Trump through the people that I know that know him is say, leave those people alone. Talk about what you're going to do for America. Stick with that message. No more mudslinging, because some people might get offended. They're already down. Don't step on them. Just keep going. Keep looking ahead and hoping that you win. You win in November and take over in January.
I'm sure we'll have you join us again, and maybe this time we'll probably have someone who's pro-Democrats, so that we can have a balanced conversation from both sides of the divide. Also, so that we can have you reference or respond to those who talk about the quality of character of Trump's person as opposed to the party, it being the quality of his character, not just necessarily what he wants to do for America. But we will have you again, and we're just saying this to get your word so that when we reach out, you would oblige us. But thank you so much for your time with us today.
I welcome a debate. It's always healthy.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. We're reviewing the papers this morning, and joining us to see what the big stories making the headlines today are is Public Affairs Analyst Dotun Ojon. Good morning. Good to have you.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
Well, welcome. Let's get into the conversations this morning. The front pages of the first paper that we're looking at this morning is the Vanguard newspaper. Economy faces threats with 1.4 million barrels per day crude output. Industry experts point to dark spots and recommendation. We can produce 2 MBPD, says NNPC. Nigeria needs energy minister, not president, to drive industry, according to Agbakoba, and NURC concluding investment to boost output, according to Komolafe. You can see the big picture there. The picture is of Biden endorsing, of maybe not at the point this picture was taken, but of course, he's quit the presidential race, he's endorsing Kamala Harris, and everyone's talking about it. Our refinery having repeated orders from abroad, says Dangote, who is currently in the news. Navy Nimasa disagree over proposed law on maritime security. Osime absent from Napoli pre-season. 3 civilians, inspector, 2 assailants killed as gunmen attack police team in Aba. U.S. election, why Biden withdrew from presidential race. And that will be all that we have this morning on the Vanguard. Let's head to First News.
All right, the First News newspapers this morning. Help Nigerians in need instead of spreading lies, says Peter Obi, as Onanuga insists Obi supporters and IPOB behind planned nationwide protest. Also unfit from the start, Trump blasts Biden as he drops re-election bid and endorses Kamala Harris. Senator Orji Kalu calls for part-time legislature, regional government to cut costs. And also court declines to stop Fubara from spending Rivers funds. Another 58 Nigerian women and children rescued from traffickers in Ghana. We can also find at the bottom of your screen here, Dangote drops oil sector bomb. Importers poisoning Nigerians with bad fuel as he demands probe. 18 killed, 3 kidnapped in fresh attack in Benue State. We can also see, the Deputy Governor of Edo State, Philip Shaibu, kneeling before Adams Oshomole as he defects from the APC to the PDP. All right, let's get straight into it. I think we'll kick off from the stories on the Vanguard this morning.
All right, let's quickly look at this Nigeria. Oil war, probe quality of PMS, diesel at filling stations nationwide. Dangote, Petroleum Regulatory Agency, NMDPRA at each other's throats over alleged monopolistic tendencies. Dangote rejects claim of producing substandard fuel monopoly. NDLEA seizes large consignments of illicit drugs in 10 states. Tinubu addresses African leaders on achievements and challenges of ECOWAS. Genocide looms in Benue. Youths raise the alarm. My fellow Americans, I quit, says U.S. President Biden on November polls. Endorses Vice President Kamala Harris. 2023 election violence. Court orders INEC to hold government and governors and deputies accountable. I think, of course, the oil war is a big conversation to start with. The CEO of NMDPRA, Farouk Ahmed, I believe, has asked that the quality of PMS... No. Dangote has said that they should go and investigate the quality of PMS sold at filling stations, because all of this is to counter the claims that he's selling substandard products. You know the full story of the war between NMDPRA now and Dangote, and how he's been in the news lately. But what are your thoughts about this? Is there any sense or argument to the CEO of NMDPRA's claims?
Okay, as much as we're not experts, I just want to speak from the angle of a sane Nigerian who has studied the politics of the nation for a while, including the oil sector. And one of the things that I will say to you is that when Dangote refinery started, I was a bit not comfortable with the expression of hope by the federal government that Dangote refinery is going to take our woes away. That's number one. Number two is also the fact that initially, the federal government talked about their own investment in the refinery, and at the end of the day, we heard about the back and forth that actually followed. But there are about 3 basic things that I want us to bring out. The first one is monopoly. Either you like it or not, from the history that we have read about the black people, we have seen that the war of monopoly is always very political. And the capitalist most often does not have the interest of those people we serve at heart. Once you put profit at the center of business, then it defeats what the government is supposed to do for the people. Now, for any government to say that, oh, we are handing over our most crucial sector into the hand of the capitalists, it's exactly what happened in 2002 when President Olusegun Obasanjo was there. He actually charged his deputy then, Atiku Abubakar, to ensure that privatization went through. And the promise they made is that once that happened, that the nation will know development more than ever. But you and I are living testimony after the fact that that did not add anything to us. So monopoly. The second thing is that why is the government now crying at this point in time of the thing they supported earlier? And the best way to fight monopoly in this instance, in a same community, It's not for you to continue to depend on importation. As we speak now, Nigeria has four refineries with about 25 modular refineries. From those 25 modular refineries, about 10 of them are working presently. If your idea is to actually fight monopoly, which I'm in great support of, I do not want, the oil sector is too big a sector.
So are you saying that Dangote actually is monopolizing the oil sector and that the claims are true? Responding to this, he also talked about the fact that even when he was coming into, for example, the cement business, he wasn't the first there. Lafarge was already there. Yeah. There are other big players there. So how can they say that? He said that monopoly is saying, stop allowing other people to come into the space. Stop, it's an attempt to prevent other people. And he has said that that's not what he's done.
So there are two conversations here. The first one is the federal government coming to say through that agency to say that the Dangote refinery management actually approached them to ensure that there's no importation, which it is right and wrong. If there's no importation, it means that Dangote refinery will be the only one serving perhaps Nigeria and some other sub-region. The wrong side of it is that when you want to break monopoly, as it is today, our Naira is struggling, you don't break monopoly by importation. That's what I'm saying. Now,
even if there's an element to truth, has that been confirmed?
Of course, none of the allegation has been confirmed, either from the federal government or from Dangote refinery. We are all making this analysis based on what everyone has said. And the first thing is that we are a very unserious set of people. And that's what has followed us to the point of leadership. If, for instance, we have our daily consumption, anytime prices of petrol move up, our daily consumption drops. If we are doing a daily consumption of about 30 million liters per day now, and we have refineries that have the capacity to produce close to 500,000 barrels of oil per day, then we shouldn't be talking about importation in the first place. And I should remind you that every year, there's what they call budgetary allocation for turnaround maintenance. It has not stopped in the last 12 years. Yep. It means that dollars go into the refinery. There are workers there. Nobody is asking the question as to what exactly are they doing. Yep. So if the federal government wants to, the summary of the entire thing is that if the federal government wants to break monopoly, which I'm in support of, they should concentrate on making our local refineries work. They should support people with modular refineries who also have the capacity to feed some states. And before you know it, there will be equilibrium of price and everything will balance out. The capitalist will be able to make his gain minimally, and the government will also be able to support its citizens by making petrol available for them. What is the essence of people queuing in NNPC filling station? It's because they felt that they could get it cheaper there. So if we have our refineries working, it's going to be a plus on us. For those who can queue, you are going to queue. I have cited an example of countries who deliberately had price regulation. What they said to students is different from what they said to workers. What they said to some group of people is different. People who earn 70,000 naira, for example, do not have the business to be buying in some market. We should create an opportunity for every environment, for everyone to grow. Yeah. And it's not by fighting Dangote. It's by ensuring that we break the monopoly by making our refineries work.
All right, so we're going to come back to talking about the oil sector. I'm trying to make the best use of our time. There's a story on the Vanguard where it says economy faces a threat with 1.4 million barrels per day crude oil output, which, of course, I'm going to bring us the question, if we're making commitments to Dangote refinery at 300,000 barrels per day to pay off the 1.76, we have 35,000 barrels per day to the Lekki refinery funding group. We have Afri-Exim loans that were, I think, 100,000 barrels per day commitment. How on earth we're going to then meet up with our 1.7 million barrels per day that was stated in our budget for 2024? So we're going to get back to that, but I want you to address something on First News. Help Nigerians in need instead of spreading lies, says Peter Obi. Bayo Onanuga, of course, president spokesperson, accused the Labour Party presidential candidate and the IPOB of being behind the sudden call for protests across the country. So let's get your response to the little back and forth we're having with it.
A lot has not changed in the concept of governance. And I listened to former President Olusegun Obasanjo yesterday in Kenya speaking about the fact that African leaders have not learned to engage the youthful populace. And he called it a keg of gunpowder that's going to explode. I deliberately went back to school to pick a master's in corporate communication with interest in political communication because of the rascality of some of our politicians and the way they react to issues. It is annoying. You will not say, when you say that Peter Obi or IPOB are responsible for whatever it is that the protest, then it shows that you do not understand the reality in the marketplace. So how do people in government, how should they communicate? They should communicate not to make political point, but to buy citizens over to themselves. And how do you do that? You must first of all understand the fact that people are going through a lot. Yeah. And the best way they can express it now is to hit the street. Because they have spoken again and again, and the people are not listening. So, and how do you know that your government is listening? When you make a particular complaint, the government go back to that complaint to fix it. They may not fix it immediately, but you will see the sincerity in how they come across to you. But when we go back to the 20th century model of communication and we see that everything that has to do with protest is an attack on government, you will not be able to buy your citizens over. The major challenge Nigeria has today is not whether the president is working or not working. It is that the fact that the citizens do not believe that their government is working. And the best way to buy them over is to communicate to their heart, to speak to their mind, to let them see that the government is actually, the essence of government is to work for them. I have said it repeatedly, that the concept of government is the concept of God. What is the concept of God? It's doing for the people what they cannot do for themselves. And the essence of government by extension is to do for them what they cannot do for themselves. And the best way to get this across to the people is to communicate to their soul. It's not to continue to throw stone. I didn't support Peter Obi during the election. But if there's going to be a protest now, I will be at the forefront. I'm not disruptive. I've done everything in Nigeria. I have a credible credential, but I will be in the forefront. So it will be too myopic. And that's why I say some people, you know, when you apply a 19th century medication to a 21st century ailment, the best you will get is a 20th century healing. And that's exactly what we have in government. People using their past experience of what cannot work in the reality of the century. And it's the same thing you see on our road. Whenever I drive past and I see police altercation with some of the boys, what is their offense? Police begin to suspect them when they wear dread. Police begin to suspect them when they sack their trousers. It's because of the fact that majority of the people that are policing our community do not have experience in 21st century policing. And they do not know that a 21st century person, the way they express their creativity could be in their hairstyle. The way they express their creativity could be in their clothes. But immediately you see them, you think, oh, this must be a Yahoo boy. It's the exact same mentality of government. And it's very sad. And for Peter Obi coming out to say that we should allocate more something to people in
Nigerians
the truth is that because of our lack of data, it's going to be exceedingly difficult, if not practically impossible, to really know who the poor is. Yeah. And that is why they use the back door. During Buhari government, they use the back door of, oh, we are allocating more funds to poor people to steal a lot of money. And that's the reality. It's in public domain today. Right. So I don't want us to go back to the saying we want to allocate more resources to people in poverty. Let us make Nigeria work for all, and everybody will pick their benefit from a process that works.
Okay, just to mention that if you're watching and you'd like to be a part of the conversation, we have a few more minutes before we wrap up the newspaper segment, and you can call the numbers on your TV screen to react to any of the stories that we're speaking about from the newspapers this morning. So we look forward to taking your calls before we wrap this up. I want us to quickly take, I don't know, we haven't looked at the Daily Independent this morning, but the front page of the Daily Independent, I want us to take the big story there. It says, wound-licking Labour dumps fight to reverse electricity tariff hike. We know the drama between...
I didn't get that.
Wound-licking Labour dumps fight to reverse electricity tariff hike. Now, we know that part of what Labour was clamoring for was not just for the minimum wage, but initially was minimum wage and reversal of electricity tariff hike. Now it seems that that quest has been abandoned and they've settled for 70,000 naira. Is there a way that they could have handled this differently that would have given them some edge with the government in being able, or did you even see there was a possibility at all for the government to reverse the electricity tariff hike because of Labour? And is there a way that they could have handled it differently that would have helped them get the results that they didn't get?
Okay. I must confess to you that sitting on the table with government is one of the most difficult jobs anybody can do. First, because anytime you sit with government, the people you are representing begin to lose faith in you. So it makes it a bit difficult for you to be able to come out to say, oh, I actually went there to do the bidding of my people. So mistrust is always present when people sit on the table with government, especially from the people they are representing, which is normal, and I do not envy Labour at this point in time, because there are more than 1,000 reasons that the government will actually put on the table to ensure that they do not get their 250,000 naira. But again, like I said, more money has never solved any problem. It is the reality of the marketplace that will determine whether the people will lead a better life, not the amount of money that they can get into.
All right, let's hear from Lola calling from Lagos. Good morning, Lola. Thank you for calling. Please go ahead with your comment.
Yes, good morning, everybody, and how are you today?
Very well, go ahead.
Thank you. So I agree totally with the gentleman over there. I think the problem with Nigeria so far, from my own observation, is we keep treating the symptom and not the root cause of our problem. It's high time that our leaders went to the root cause. What is the reason for the youth wanting to stage a protest? In my own opinion, a protest has never really solved the problem. It just creates awareness. So I think at this point we need to start thinking for our leaders out of the box and for the youth out of the box. In terms of labor, well, I also believe the same thing applies to them. Agitating for raise in salary or minimum wage should not be the only reason why they went in there. There are other, soft landings they could give people workers in Nigeria that will make life better for them. The 17,000 being just like, okay, the basic. And then what are the other benefits that comes for being a worker in Nigeria? Let us treat the root cause. So what is the root cause? Why are all these things happening?
Right.
Simple, instead of treating the symptoms. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your contribution.
Can I begin from there? The root cause, the major problem we have at this point in time now is inflation. We've talked about 33% unemployment rate. We've talked about, but the major challenge we have, for instance now, the increased labor guard is about 110 or 120% increase over their 30,000 former minimum wage. But again, the prices of virtually every product have gone up more than that percentage. So in terms of even the money itself, it cannot match with the reality of the inflation we have in the marketplace. So we need to work on the inflation. How do we do this? Nigeria is still a bit import-dependent nation. And our clamor for the greenback is annoying. For the dollar is extremely annoying. Everything in Nigeria today seems to be tied to it. So anytime the currency of another nation gains value, we begin to have stomach ache. And it's very annoying. So we must be able to do things in terms of empowering medium and small and medium scale entrepreneurs to produce what we need locally, so that at least we can empower our people. We must do everything possible to ensure that we earn foreign currency, so that at least the value of our naira can be something meaningful. But again, you cannot combine corruption with development. And this is I'm saying this emphatically. Since the fact that there was a change of government in 2023 does not mean that people are not still stealing the nation dry. So we must address the issue of corruption in a way that we will retain more money. We must look into our budget so that we do not continue to budget for stealing. We must empower our nation in a way that people can go to the market and buy something reasonably, not these excuses as to, today now, we are talking about our OPEC quota is about 1.5 barrel supply per day. And you were talking about all the other obligations we have. Yeah. But I will shock you, being a person who has experience in the Niger Delta area, that we actually have capacity to do even 2.5 million barrels per day. But where do all of this go? Into the hand of thieves. Yeah. And the federal government is not doing much about it.
But we can't argue that the federal government is not aware.
Of course, nobody can come to your waterways without the knowledge. You remember, one of the reasons why the president, this is a rumor, stopped Asari Dokubo from visiting the presidential villa was the fact that He had an opportunity to visit the president. When he came out to address the president, he told them that the Navy and the other people are responsible for oil theft in the Niger Delta. Whether true or not, but a man at that level knows what he's saying. Yep. So nobody will, it's like somebody flying on your airways and you say you are not aware. Nobody will come to your waterways and at least the sensitive organs of government will not be aware. And this idea of, oh, the president is the petroleum minister, this must stop. If we want this nation to run, to be president is a full-time job. Yeah. So in fact, I've begun to think that we should also have vice president in all the zone, so that the burden on the president will be lessened. Not that the president will be taking...
Will that not then increase the cost of running governance?
Of course.
About cutting the cost of governance.
Well, I don't know. Of course, it's going to a bit increase it. But the reality of what I'm saying is that the president has too much in his hand already than merging other ministries as if they are not Nigerian. Sometimes when you look at these things, it becomes insultive. Because you're sitting as if, oh, I'm the only one that can do it. And you're not delivering results. 6 months have gone. You're not delivering results. 1 year has gone.
I don't think it has. I don't think the president being petroleum minister has ever been because of competence. I don't think it has been a competence issue as the reason behind them choosing to be petroleum ministers.
Maybe
really just control.
I mean, their argument might be that they're trying to block the loopholes.
Okay.
Because
but they've not blocked anything.
I love the word trying to block.
Yeah,
exactly.
well,
they will continue to try to block.
They've not been able to block anything.
It doesn't. See, for instance, some of the things we know, they are not too palatable to the ears of people, and sometimes we just decide to look away. If we are doing a Lagos to Calabar road, for example, if we are doing it, and we know that, oh, we are going to toll it at the end of the day, we just don't want to even go into the technicality. What happens to the East-West road? East-West road has been running since 2006. Up to today, you cannot pass through the road.
All right. I'd like to please ask the director to please come on my close-up. I have a very important story that I want to read out the headline here. And this story, it wasn't me. It's the news. And I'm going to read the news headlines and then read the story. It says, it's hearts under arrest. FCT PPRO warns men to stop breaking ladies' hearts. And that is on the front page of the first newspapers. Now, when I went into the details of the story, Josephine Ade, spokesperson for the Federal Capital Territory Police Command, took on an unexpected role as a relationship expert on Saturday, advising men to stop breaking their lovers' hearts. She said it's distasteful to lead a woman on and then break her heart. The rate at which men are doing this is saddening, she wrote. And she revealed that she has been receiving numerous calls from distressed women detailing their relationship failures. And this has garnered a lot of reaction. And I'm sure that it will garner a lot of reaction. Also to talk about the fact that there's actually a legal case here, especially when there has been promise to marry. There's such a thing as breach of promise to marry. At least I remember, I think it was Bestseller against Stern. That was where that case was established. I found that very interesting, and I would like you to talk about it.
Every time there's economic hardship, there's always a strain of a romantic relationship, because you cannot be chasing survivor and relationship at the same time. And it has been proven again and again. You see, the way men reason from the angle of men is that our manliness is usually linked with our ability to provide. Either the woman wants it or not. But whenever this ability is challenged, you discover that we pay less attention to the issue of relationship. So I also want women to understand that we are in a hard time and men are doing everything possible to ensure that they survive first before they get committed to relationship.
Just like the famous song says, no romance without finance. I think that's what that's an interesting note.
And also, end. With regards to the legal angle that you mentioned,
yes.
Anybody is allowed to withdraw their plans to marry at any time. The fact that he promised you in February doesn't mean he can change his mind in November.
Well,
evidence has always been an issue. If there's an evidence to the fact that a promise was made, then there must also be an evidence to a conversation that happened at this weekend.
I shall know that there is something called breach of promise to marry. We'll probably invite a
he has changed his mind. I don't understand. Why is it criminal?
It's not criminal. Breach of promise to marry is an actionable...
yes. So,
anyway, that's a
fellow men,
please change your mind anytime you feel like it. That's my message this morning. Anytime,
we're going to break now.
Any morning.
When we come back, it will be time for us to bring you Which Way Nigeria. Stay with us.
Lately, there's been a lot of varying opinions on the need for a protest or not. It has even progressed, just as expected, into ethnic profiling and attempts to paint the calls for a protest as something engineered by the IPOB or by Labour Party's candidate Peter Obi, who, of course, if you've paid close attention, has not once said anything pro-protesting. And you can, of course, see from his Twitter account every single thing he said concerning protesting. None of them has been in support of a protest, either in the past or currently. But, as usual, the presidential spokesperson, Bayo Onanuga, still found it within himself. He dug deep within himself, and after searching and searching and searching for days, he was able to still manufacture a narrative blaming either Peter Obi or the IPOB for increasing calls for a nationwide protest. This is where we are. Now, we can address how that, of course, how things have turned out and how all the evidence seems to be completely false, blaming the IPOB or Peter Obi for the calls for a protest. But let's really just ask the question this morning. Is there anyone across Nigeria today who's actually happy? Right from northern Nigeria, the Middle Belt, the South-South, the Southeast, and even here in the Southwest where the president is from. Is there anyone who is truly trusting the process? Aside politicians and those who, of course, who are fully invested for their personal interest, is there anyone who says to themselves, yes, things may be really tough right now, but I really trust this government and I'm okay with suffering till things start to get better? Is there anyone who truly is excited about Nigeria's current situation? If there is, why are they hiding? Why don't we see them on the streets celebrating and cheering on the current government? Why instead are we seeing people climbing broadcasting masts or attempting suicide, even here in Lagos? It would be the highest level of self-deceit to tell yourself, or even to tell Mr. President, that the growing calls for a protest are engineered or driven by the opposition political party or movement. And even if that was the case, the fact that there is a growing number of people who are struggling to get even just one meal a day, as stated by Senator Ahmad Lawan, it makes it easier for whichever anti-government group to engineer a protest. Again, that doesn't seem to be the case. Just to reiterate that it's not likely that any of the calls for protests are engineered by the IPOB or Peter Obi or anybody, just like Bayo Onanuga said. But I'll ask these people around Mr. President this morning to take a quick opinion poll across Nigeria. Ask around 1,000 or 10,000 people, are they truly happy with today's Nigeria? Are they impressed with the way the country is being run? Do they believe in the idea of persevering, as President Tinubu has asked? Just do a quick opinion poll across the country and see what it will show you. I'm certain those closest to Mr. President wouldn't like the results of those opinion polls. So again, this morning, as we take further steps in our journey as a nation, let those around Mr. President be reminded that Nigerians are very much aware that they don't have time to waste. I've spoken about this before. Millions of Nigerians have done a mental breakdown of how old they would be at the end of this administration, and how important it is that our nation starts to see some level of progress today. Not next week, not in a few years, not maybe in the next couple of months. Today. So it is important that this government does something to show the Nigerian people that as you ask them to be patient, that they are not going to be waiting in vain. Ethnic whistling or any other tactics to dismantle a possible protest is a clear sign that Mr. President's people do not have the necessary means to convince Nigerians that they are in safe hands. Good morning, Nigerians.
Contrary to reports, Hilda Dokubo, a prominent Nollywood actress and chairperson of the Labour Party in Rivers State, has denied being suspended from her position. Rumors of her suspension surfaced after an emergency party meeting on July 15th with allegations of financial misconduct, abuse of office, and breach of party regulations. However, Dokubo took to Instagram to set the record straight, declaring that she remains the party's chairperson and accusing the People's Democratic Party members of orchestrating a plot to tarnish her reputation. We're joined this morning to unfold all the drama, the chairperson of the Labour Party in Rivers State herself, Hilda Dokubo. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us, ma'am.
Morning. It's a great pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you as well. The letter was signed by people who you claimed are not a part of the party. I want you to speak further, first of all, as to if you've found out the origin of this letter, and how and why it was even written in the first place.
First is, yes, I have traced the origin of the letter, and I wish that it was something I knew you were going to ask. I would have posted it to you. I was in Buguma, the Asaritoro headquarters yesterday for our usual Labour Party meeting. And I decided, I ran as Labour Party candidate for Asaritoro Akukutoro Federal Constituency in 2023, and then the campaign started. I lived in my community for 6 months straight. The only time I came to Port Harcourt was to buy food. So I know these people. For instance, the guy who signed Ajala Monia. Ajala Monia is a PDP card-carrying boy who twice tried to disrupt my campaign until he was called to order and told never to try it again. I am a daughter from the Okwaro. If you ask the people of Calabar what that means, they will tell you. So that was how he stopped. Osaki Dokubo, like even the name tells you, is a first cousin who is the ward coordinator for PDP. Could not even campaign for me, even with the blood relationship, because at the time, the governor had given all of them instructions, or the former governor, on what to do to people who were from any other party campaigning in the communities. The second, Osaki Deprie, is the wife of somebody else in Ward 7, another PDP. So it was a bunch of PDP people. Guess what? Even what they called a sit-in was done in Ombopolo. Ombopolo is Ward 4. So nobody in that team, if you looked at what they put behind them as flag or whatever backdrop, you will see how new that thing is. So they were in a place that was never, you can't even relate to Labour Party in Asaritoro. So we already know every single one of them, and they are prepared to even say so. In fact, they have already said so. They were apologizing and crying yesterday. Yeah. They did not know what to call them for. They told them that there was going to be an empowerment meeting. So they should come and write their names, account numbers, and I think account numbers and ward. That was all they did. So they packed all of them there without them knowing. And my people, not a lot of them, they're not educated. So they speak better in Calabari language. So every time you want to confuse them, if you watch my videos for campaign, you'll find out that I did more campaign in Calabari language than I did in English language, because I understand how it is with the people at the grassroots. So yes, we know all of them, and yes, they are all PDP members. They have not crossed. Now, the reason they're doing this, can I go on?
Yes, the reason they're doing this.
Yes, the reason they're doing this is because, if you recall, when the 27 lawmakers defected into APC, I challenged that, and I told them that it was against the law. The Constitution of Nigeria is clear on what happens to you once you move. It didn't just stop at making a video. I actually sued them to court. I am a deponent to that case, and I got a lawyer. So they have tried, they have called, they have cajoled, they have blackmailed, they have done everything to get me to drop that case, and I have bluntly refused. So that is one anger. The second anger is that the Rivers State INEC announced the dates for the chairman, councillorship and chairmanship elections. I'm Labour Party chairperson. I attended that workshop, and as usual, I will ask questions. So I asked questions and corrections were made and things, and we have been working amicably. Now, some people who had carried out anti-party activities during the last elections, collected money, sold people, were suspended at NEC, who had also taken me to court upon my appointment and had lost twice on the roll, the rulings are there, ran again to RISEC to see if they could collect the documents. And they told them at RISEC, Chairman Labour Party is Hilda Dokubo, she has collected her documents. And all hell went loose. Why? Because all the people were thinking that this was one opportunity to use. I don't handle finances in Labour Party at all. Labour Party River State does not even have money. I have no relationship, no dealings whatsoever with finances. We have a financial secretary and we have an accountant.
All right.
So that's all political. If you remove Hilda, this case will die in court because there won't be a deponent anymore because she's no longer chairman.
How much faith do you have in the case, the one you're speaking about? How much faith do you have in it? And then also, I also want to talk about Labour Party in Rivers State and how it is actually surviving. And many people would argue that, Rivers State doesn't really have a Labour Party, wing. I mean, it exists on paper, but it's not been able to really pull a lot of weight when needed.
If it wasn't pulling a lot of weight, all this drama won't be going on. Nobody throws stones at a barren tree. Everybody throws stones at trees that are fruitful, and that's what is happening. We are so strong. As a matter of fact, we are the #1 party to look at the very moment, because the PDP and the APC, we don't know which is what. They are both PD, APC, AP, PDP, whatever. It's gone. So even in the last election, what it was PDP, APC, Labour. So we're that strong, extremely strong in Rivers State. What faith do I have in the judiciary? I tell you, we have a good case. We have a good case. Do I trust the judiciary 100%? Not exactly. But, let's push this. Let's push this for my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, and generations unborn. Because if we don't get this right, it will affect everybody in the state. Let it be recorded that I tried, I did my best, the judiciary failed us. It will be better to say it that way and to see it that way than for all of us to just remain docile and reluctant about it.
Okay, now let's talk about what's happening in Rivers State in terms of governance. Many would argue that governance has taken a backseat in Rivers State with the seeming drama going on with the current administration and in some way the previous Governor Nyesom Wike. So what are your thoughts on what is the current position regarding governance in Rivers State, and what are your thoughts about the drama?
Rivers State has never been as peaceful as it is today. We're at peace. The governor is doing his best. I mean, a man who has so much distractions all over him and yet has managed to stay focused to provide leadership and governance. I want to commend him for staying the way that he has stayed and paid very little attention to all the distractions, focusing on leadership. He's an accountant, and if you know anything about accountants, I have one in my family. My brother is an icon. They hardly talk. They talk once, and that's it. They just keep doing. I think they're very busy calculating. They're not like, some people. So I think that's why he's not using the media like the former governor. The former governor did a lot of media work. He had everybody on his payroll. And, if he coughs, it's in the media. Everything he does. But this governor, Simnala Ifubara, the governor of Rivers State, hardly uses the media. Hardly. So whatever you see online or in any of the newspapers are not paid for. They are organic. They're just people reporting the truth.
Well, again, I brought the idea of Labour Party's relevance in Rivers State. I know, like you've said, you don't throw stones at a barren tree. But if there was going to be an election today, where do you think Labour Party would come out in any aspect of governance in Rivers State?
Let me say something clearly, that everybody points hands. I've been asked severally. We hear the governor is coming to Labour Party. We hear the governor is coming to Labour Party. Everybody's coming to Labour Party. Will they be going to a place that is dead? No. That is part of the problem that we have.
Which governor now? You're saying Governor Sim Fubara has come to Labour Party?
No, he's not. I'm saying that I don't know whether he is, so let me not categorically say he's not. I'm saying that there is the rumor all over Rivers State. There is the rumor that he's coming. And I've been asked severally, and I say, well, the man has not told me anything. I haven't seen them. Nobody has said anything, but he's a free citizen of Nigeria and has his rights. So if we had an election today, we will win every space that is available.
All right. Now let's go to the national level and look at your principal, His Excellency Peter Obi. There have been accusations regarding the planned protest from the 1st of August to the 15th of August, and Bayo Onanuga has in some measure inferred that Peter Obi and maybe his supporters are behind the planned protest. What are your reactions to this?
Bayo Onanuga accuses everybody, including children in their mother's wombs. Everything that goes wrong with Nigeria is Peter Obi. If today Bayo has insomnia and cannot sleep, it will be Peter Obi's fault. But truly, who is pleased in Nigeria? Who is feeding? Who can even claim that wherever it was their life was 8 years ago, that they are even anywhere close to that? People are. It has nothing to do with Peter Obi. Can they just be sincere with themselves? Take sincere verdict from people. A friend asked me, their friend just said, oh, you should cross to our party. I said, it's not even possible for me to do that. And he said, well, I said, because your party cannot provide for me what I want politically. And he said, what is it? I said, a party that is true to the citizens of Nigeria. So, I think Onanuga should check himself. It's sad. It's sad that a man who should advise the president of Nigeria, who should listen to the heartbeats of Nigerians and feed the president sincerely, is feeding the president with lies. It's heartbreaking.
But what do you think what do you think will be the outcome of this protest if it eventually happens? Are you in support of it?
When we protested the last time, the president himself has been part of every protest in Nigeria apart from the NSAS. Every protest in Nigeria. But right now, protest is a sign of hate, is a sign of not wanting to cooperate, is a sign of being unobedient, is a sign of being Igbo, is a sign of every nonsense. So, I'll sit in my house because nobody is listening. They killed Nigeria's children on the 20th of October 2020. They came up with whatever white paper. Those children, where are they? Where are the parents? What is happening to them? Who is checking? I don't want to give up on Nigeria. I truly don't want to, and that's why I voice out all the time. But anybody who still has the consciousness, the mind to demonstrate should be allowed their rights. It is everyone's fundamental human rights to demonstrate against things that you don't believe in. That's my take.
But you wouldn't actively participate in a protest if there is.
What's the use? Well, let's watch how it goes. Okay? Let's watch how it goes.
Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time and we look forward to having more conversations with you in the coming weeks. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a great pleasure. And thank you for the work you do.
Thank you very much.
So
This is where we say goodbye. Thank you very much for being with us as we kicked off Breakfast Central for this week. We, of course, wish you a beautiful day ahead. And remember to join us tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. I am Osaogi Ogbon.
And I am Olive Emodi. See you around.